All right, hey everyone, Jammer here from Jammer's Wrestling Magazine Collection. That's a good sign already. I almost botched my own intro, but it's one of those days, I guess. And being that it's one of those days, I want to talk about one of those magazines being these magazines, the non-Stanley Weston magazines. These aren't Pro Wrestling Illustrated. These aren't The Wrestler. These aren't Inside Wrestling, Sports Review Wrestling, Wrestling Superstars, any of that. These are, well, okay, let's do an example here. If Stanley Weston was the NWA, then these are Angelo Paffo's ICW. I mean, how else can you explain it, right? These are the other wrestling magazines, the ones that are, well, full of sometimes mistakes, spelling mistakes, wrong captions for the pictures. I mean, clearly wrestling in the 80s was so hot, so exciting, so out there. You know, it was almost universally accepted to be a wrestling fan in the 80s during the Hulk Hogan era, when he had, you know, Mr. T by his side, or Cyndi Lauper, or the WrestleMania 3 with Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. I mean, this was a time frame where wrestling wasn't looked down upon, and they tried to make it looked down upon by having, you know, news documentaries try to perceive wrestling as fake. Let's be honest, I think even as a kid, I knew something was up with wrestling. They were punching each other in the face and they weren't bleeding from it. I mean, come on. There's an art to it. Even I knew it at age 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. But I digress. But these magazines, from Wrestling Eye to Wrestling Fury to Wrestling's Main Event, Wrestling Insider, and Wrestling World, you know, big gold belt wrestling, Wrestling Scene, all of them, Wrestling Action, they're all different. They're all a alternative to the Stanley Weston magazines and the Bill Apters and all that, right? That was just a different horse in that race, right? Let's be honest. These magazines, however, did have some cool and interesting things to them. For example, if you look at Wrestling's Main Event here, and I got this in a lot. All these magazines I got in a lot. I didn't purposely go out and buy. Actually, I purposely went out and bought the Brutus Beefcake one, and one more here that I have of Randy Savage on the cover, just because A, I always wanted the Beefcake one, and B, the Randy Savage one I owned as a kid. But same with the Demolition Wrestling Fury. I owned that as a kid. Wrestling Fury, by the way, a real guilty pleasure for me, for the alternative of the Bill Apter, Stanley Weston magazines. I thought Wrestling Fury was fun. It had a lot of spelling mistakes in it at times. The rankings made no sense. My favorite one was when they had Repo Man spelt Repro Man. They had REPRO, so, you know, Repro Man, there he is. But anyways, Wrestling's Main Event was neat because it was, first of all, the papers were glossy, right? They weren't like paper, you know. And the editor is George. I can never say his last name, like Napoletino or something like that. You know who I'm talking about. He was big. He's like the alternative to Bill Apter. But yeah, these you know, but then they get into the color. So there is colored photos. They actually, like, there's Hangman Bob. And here's the thing too. At this time, this is what, 1983. I don't know if the odds are of seeing a Hangman Bobby Jaggers story in the other magazines. I mean, maybe, but I think it'd be kind of slim. But right there's a color photo of Hangman Bobby Jaggers, and that guy's forehead was a freaking disaster after all the blading he did over the years. But yeah, they had colored. Like, there's Rocky Soulman Johnson, the Rock's dad, right there. So these were kind of neat, you know. Captain Lou, a bloody mess in the back. So there's Captain Lou, Ray the Crippler Stevens, and Classy Freddie Blassie. So these magazines were neat in that you got colors. You know, you got color photos. You got to see things that were just, let's be honest, Sports Review Wrestling or The Wrestler or Inside Wrestling, for great magazines they're all black and white print. There was no colored posters in them until I think sometimes they ended up doing that as time went on. In the 90s, I think they put posters in the odd time. But let's take a look now at a magazine I owned as a kid. I owned Wrestling Eye with Randy, Macho Man Savage, and Miss Elizabeth on the cover. These magazines were so different. They were just, look at that. Like, first of all, right off the bat, man, you got like, there's Terry Taylor. Then you get through, man, Rick Martel, right? Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen, Demolition, right there, a full poster of them. Road Warrior Animal, Tommy Rogers from the Fantastics, and the British Bulldogs, right? And then boom, you go near the end, you got Linda Dallas, you got David Schultz in the Iron Sheik, you got Comrade Orga and Misty Blue. Misty Blue Sims was pretty cool. I liked her. I used to watch her in, was it the LPWA, I think it was called back in the day. Her and Heidi Lee Morgan were a tag team. The Power Twins, and of course, the king of professional wrestling, Harley Race. There's only one king. Let's be honest, it's Harley Race. That man was a man's man. When I think of the NWA in the 70s and early 80s, I think of Harley Race, no doubt. But yeah, so I had that magazine, so I had to have it again, right? I just had to own it one more time. But because of that, this Wrestling Eye here with Hulk Hogan on the cover, I got in a lot. But the interesting thing about this magazine is they have wrestling jargon, the secret language wrestlers speak. I mean, look at this. Oh, Adrian Adonis just came out, but I guess that could have meant both ways. Adrian Adonis just came out, right? I mean, it is Pride Month, but I don't think Adrian really was in the Pride role. He just played it on TV rather well. But anyways, look at this. We got Mark, a fan with no knowledge inside of the inside of pro wrestling. A smart opposite of the above understands that he or she is okay. Bull, an old term that is hardly used today, which refers to the promoter. I never heard of that one. And babyface, a fan favorite. But yeah, they go through and this company, Wrestling High, just gives you all the jargon right there. Like they're not lying. Heel, shooter, jobber, juice, blood. I would have never guessed that. Doing a job, losing a match. I mean, all this stuff. Here's Marty Jannetty all juiced up. Okay. So weird that this company, Wrestling Eye, said, I'm just gonna give everyone the information to tell you that, hey, wrestling isn't real, but buy our magazine still, please. Right. That's gonna work. But it must have, because Wrestling Eye stayed out for years and years and years. They kept going. But, as time went on, like there's other magazines too. Like, for example, I'll throw that there and Macho can go there. This magazine, Wrestling World. I kept this because who's on the cover? I love Shawn Michaels. I love Kevin Nash. They're like my favorites from the mid 90s. But this had a lot of posters too. You got, Steve Austin in here. Mr. Wedgie himself, Ahmed Johnson. I swear he couldn't wrestle a match without having a wedgie in his trunks going up, his butt. But whatever. Raven, of course, ECW, and Sonny. That's always enjoyable. And Sting, back when Sting was just growing his hair out, getting rid of the blonde, going into the dark. That was, yeah. So these magazines are okay too. You get a lot of just actually, I just want to show you something here. I just came across it if I can find it. Yeah. In these magazines, you're going to get a lot of this too. Gorgeous women wrestlers in action. And they're not wrestlers. They're just probably aspiring adult film stars who are going to rub around with another half-naked woman and hoping to excite the men who are watching it. Nowadays, of course, you don't need to buy a magazine for that. There's various websites. But this is the cream of the crop right here. Something I encountered just the other night with a friend. I was going through these magazines because I was trying to get ideas for my next videos. And I brought up, I need to do a video on the alternative of the Stanley, Weston, Bill After magazines, right? And I came across this Wrestling Eye with Hulk Hogan on it. And this is a classic cover. I remember seeing this in the Wrestling Eye, magazines when I was a kid, the ones I had. And I'm pretty sure I still had other ones as time went on. I just don't remember the covers of them now. But this is interesting. Wanted. And this guy is called, look at that. If you can see that, the Ultimate Warrior. And there he is. There's the Ultimate Warrior. I'm surprised that Jim Hellwig never tried to sue this man. And look at the burn this guy has on Bill Dundee. I'm 5'8" and 170 pounds. If Bill Dundee can make it, so can I. I'm sure superstar Bill Dundee, for his height disadvantage, could still kick your freaking ass there, Ultimate Warrior guy. But he's from Moorestown, New Jersey. I didn't know that's where Parts Unknown was at for the Ultimate Warrior. But you had other magazines, right? There's Wrestling Insider, which was a magazine that was, and it's all colorful. Look at that. You got, like, there's from WrestleMania 2, where Bundy and Hogan in the cage, right? King Kong Bundy, a changed man. I doubt that very much. He was always a ruthless villain, even when he tried to be a babyface in ECW in '93. But there's, look at that, Larry Zbyszko. You got, Jim Cornette Tells All. I mean, these are all colored. Every single page is glossy. It's colored. There's, oh man, Scott Hall. Man, Razor Ramon was such a favorite of mine. It sucked what happened to him, passing away. And look at that right there. Two legends. Kurt Hennig. Oh, look, they spelled Kurt Hennig wrong. If you can see that. Hennig, not Hennig. Kurt Hennig. That's what it is. There's no N at the end. Nikita will die, says Ivan Koloff, because he's got, who is this? Is this Vladimir? What's his name? Vladimir Koloff? Was there a Vladimir? I want to say there was. Who is that guy? Oh, Vladimir Petrov or whatever. That's it. Yeah. But these magazines were cool. These ones. I mean, for colored, they were $2.95 Canadian. So look out, that extra 45 cents. But, you got Wrestling Superstars. Ultimate Warrior made the cover there. Not the Ultimate Warrior I just got done talking about, but this is the real Ultimate Warrior. And this, look at that, you got colored photos in here too. There's a sweet photo right there of the United States Tag Team Champions. Beautiful Bobby Eaton, sweet Stan Lane with Jimmy Cornette, the Midnight Express. Yeah, Nikolai Volkov hanging tough. I mean, you never see a story in Pro Wrestling Illustrated about Nikolai Volkov. I don't think that ever happened. Oh, there's the Iron Sheik. If I would have known, this, I would have used these photos for the Sheik video I did the other day. The Ultimate Warrior, Intercontinental Champion with Hercules there. So, again, these are magazines. Here's one. This is Ringside with Sergeant Slaughter on the cover. This is from, does it even say a year on this? Just says July. Just July. Any July will do. This is Ringside. But look at that. Road Warrior Hawk with the AWA tag title. Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers, the Fantastics. Mass Superstar and Bob Backlund. I mean, these were great for posters, no doubt. You're going to get your posters. But, here we go. The Youngbloods speak out. An exclusive Ringside interview. But look who it's written by. Paul Heyman. Yes, that Paul Heyman. Paulie Dangerously. The Mr. Advocate for Brock Lesnar and the Wise Man for Roman Reigns and every other nickname he had over the years. And, of course, you also had, like a Wrestling All-Stars. And this is definitely from 1991. June 91, yeah. You can just tell by Hogan and Sarge on the cover. But it doesn't look like there's much colored photos in this. Cactus Jack clamps a headlock on a busted open Sunny Beach. That's Tri-State Wrestling right there. But I thought it may have been Herb Abrams' UWF. I want to say they did business there too. Beautiful Bobby, once again. What a great wrestler he was, eh? One of my favorites, really was one hell of an athlete. We got Greg the Hammer Valentine, severs ties with Honky and Hart, but he goes solo. He's now brawling for the Universal Wrestling Federation, so I guess he went to the UWF too. Miss Alexandra York, who became Marlena and Terry Reynolds. Wild Thing, Stevie Ray. And a sweet colored photo there of the Z-Man with the NWA World Television title, which he held for like less than 30 days. So it's amazing that there's actually a photo out there with him with the title. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Sexy Sunny Beach, yeah. Ladies, that's a sexy man right there, I guess. And then the Hulkster at WrestleMania 7. I'm pretty sure that's where that is. Either that or the Royal... Oh, that might be the Royal Rumble. That's the Royal Rumble. Because there's the Royal Rumble on that side. That's when he won the Rumble. It's hard to say. In 1991, Hogan was holding the American flag a lot because of the battles with Sergeant Slaughter and Iraq and all that. So yeah, these magazines are okay. Like I said, you're going to get a lot of mistakes in them. You just will. You'll see spelling mistakes of names. I remember some of the rankings I would see wrestlers put in the ranking like, twice. For example, it would say like, well, let's say it's 1988, and you see Brutus Beefcake in at like third in the rankings for WWF, and he's also like number 9 as well. It's like, what? How is that even possible? Things like that, little things like that, you'll see in these magazines. Not that it's a real negative thing. Like I said, a lot of them, the posters were killer. If you were a kid or a teenager, yeah, you'd be having fun taking those magazines apart and throwing those posters up on the wall, no doubt. But overall, now I personally don't see myself collecting any more of these unless I came across a super cheap lot, because I really don't have any interest in these ones. Like I said, they're kind of like the Angelo Poffo ICW, to what the National Wrestling Alliance was at the time. These, I always felt these were like the renegade wrestling magazines, the ones that just weren't real or seen, or were supposed to be seen as real, right? They're the offshoots. I want the Bill After Stanley Weston ones, or I want even the WWF ones that Vince McMahon himself put out, right? Those to me seem more realistic and better. As a kid, though, I didn't care. I went by the cover. I saw this cover when I was a kid, and to me, that sold me. I was like, I need that magazine. I don't know what else was out at the time. That was August 1988, so maybe the other magazines just didn't catch my eye, and that one did. And as a 7-year-old kid at the time, I chose to buy that. Well, I didn't choose to buy it. I let my mom and dad buy it. I clearly didn't have any money at 7. Hell, I don't have any money now at 42, but whatever, right? But yeah, so these, again, these are okay magazines, wrestling magazines. They're fun for a little while. It's more fun to see the photos and the ridiculous outtakes in them and mistakes, but I don't see myself collecting yearly editions of these. Whatever comes into my collection now, it's just there. But if any of you at home have had any of these or read any of these or remember these, let me know. Leave a comment, or like, subscribe, do all that other stuff too, right? Like, I don't care. I'm doing this for fun. As I've told you many times, it is fun to me. It gives me an excuse to look at these. These just sit here and do nothing. They literally do. I spent so much money on these things in the last like 3 years because I started collecting again during COVID times and because out of boredom. And it just kind of snowballed and escalated rather quickly into owning so many and spending so much on these things. So now that I can give back and kind of, with this, it's fun. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I know I'm getting views. I know I'm getting watched. So I'm guessing you are. And I appreciate that. And I thank you all who takes the time to do so. So that's it for today. Until I do another one, I'll talk to you later.